So I knew it was gonna happen, of course. I mean, the media does this with every mass shooting. The media has now turned back against video games since the Jacksonville shooting. Of course, if you haven't heard, in Jacksonville a few days ago, a Madden 19 tournament turned bloody. When someone who was playing in the tournament had lost, went and, I don't know where from, basically went and got a gun, came back and killed some people and injured, dozen more or so, something like that. Tragic situation, right? Something that you would think should never happen, but unfortunately, especially in America, this is something that, kinda happens pretty often. Never really happened at a video game tournament on this big of a stage before, but America has kind of a shooting issue, and, not taken away from anything there. America's still great. Don't lambaste me in the comments. Don't cry, please. But no, the media has just taken over. They do this every time that something like this happens, especially if it's a mass shooting. Regardless of where it occurs, they're going to do whatever they can to push some sort of agenda, harass the survivors, 3 hours after they just basically got shot at and nearly killed in a mass shooting, putting microphones in their face, trying to get interviews out of them and stuff. I saw one on Twitter where one of the players had, he told everyone that he was shot in the thumb and that he was, lucky to be alive. And within minutes of him tweeting that out, of course, there were reporters from news stations pretty much everywhere, hey, can we get you for an interview? Which, let me just say this, if you're one of these reporters who goes to, let's say, a school or something right after a massacre happens and these kids have, been blatantly scarred for life by what just happened, and you put mics in their face and you badger them for interviews and just bother them, you're a scumbag, and that's the truth. I mean, the media can report on these things from afar, but they just choose to get those interviews to make things juicier. They pretend like it's some sort of journalism thing, like they're being journalists, and then they forget that half the news they report on is whether or not Kim Kardashian's left ass cheek blew out, These people are not journalists, and of course the Shark Tank went stupid for this piece of bait basically dumped into their feeding grounds, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about this situation. So I'd say the most blatantly ignorant one, and the one that I think deserves to be lambasted the hardest, would definitely be the NRA TV host bashing Madden shooting survivors for wearing headsets. Okay, now get this, there's two things that was pointed out at the top of the article before I even, read too deep into it. I mean, from the headline alone, you can tell that this dude is just not all there. This is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, he's kind of a dipshit. The video he cites was not filmed at the tournament. The headset in question was not on anyone's head. As a matter of fact, the video that he was citing was a home video in which a Twitter user had pulled up footage or pulled up a live stream, something of the shooting occurring, because unfortunately this event was streamed as part of the Madden tournament. So the video was basically this person recording the screen showing what had happened, and the headset was a personal belonging to that person. So you can tell that this is a smart fellow right here. This, what's his name here? Grant Stinchfield, you are a smart man. By the way, can I say nice haircut, dude? That's a nice cut. He's got the fades on the sides, the brush over on the top. That's nice. I'm fucking with it. Anyway, you tried to make a point here, and I understand that. You tried to say that if they didn't wear headphones in this tournament, maybe they would have been able to hear the shots easier. They could have heard the assailant approaching them. Here, let me tell you why you're a dipshit, okay? Even if they did, okay, let's say they weren't wearing headphones, and the shooter came in, started just shooting everyone, right? Just doing his thing. Do you think that at that point, because of headphones not being on the player, that they were just going to stand up, an Iron Man suit was just going to form around them of Kevlar, they were going to deflect all bullets and walk out unscathed? Is that what you think was going to happen? And what is super, ironic about that whole thing, this one is the best part, actually. The crowd wasn't wearing headphones, yet people in the crowd were shot, okay? So your point is that if they're not wearing headsets, they'd be able to hear the shots and escape. So how come 4 people were killed? Hold on, let me check that number. I don't know if that's up to date. Okay, I'm sorry, actually, 3 people, including the perpetrator, were killed. 10 other injuries were caused by gunfire. Okay. Ironically enough, I don't think that the perpetrator and that the people in the crowd were wearing headsets. So isn't it weird that if people were not wearing headphones or headsets when they were shot, that, your point doesn't make sense, right? If that's the case. See, here's what I find ironic about the NRA in particular and its members, okay? And I'm not going to try and get super political in this video because, you know, I don't want to force feed any narrative, but the NRA and the members of the NRA often like to push this idea that we need to blame the shooter. We need to blame the shooters who go in here and do this. Because it's not a gun problem. It's a people problem. It's a mental insanity problem, you know? Which I agree with. Mental health in the United States is a crisis that often is not talked about enough. But if your whole thing is, let's blame the shooters, not other things, why are we now deflecting from blaming the shooter and are now blaming fucking headsets? And of course, the media is not held to just the NRA TV. Of course, they are everywhere. They've got the name of the shooter just all over headlines. They're reporting his entire life. They're reporting everything that happened. And this is part of the problem. If you keep giving them this level of attention and basically turning them into quote-unquote heroes and giving them their 15 minutes of fame every time that something like this happens, you're gonna have to worry about the next one coming in and doing it just to get his name all over the papers, you know? And what kind of fucking loser gets beaten Madden and decides that, you know what? I lost in this Madden tournament. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go get my 45, and I'm gonna come back in here and kill people. You know, what kind of fucking loser? I mean, when are we just gonna address the issue the way that it is, okay? The people who shoot these schools up and these tournaments up and places, they're mentally fucking ill. There's something very wrong with them. They are mentally crippled, and they should have never have had access to guns in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that we should ban guns, okay? Because that's firmly not what I believe anyways. But I think we can all agree, whether you're pro-gun control or against gun control, that people who are mentally insane and have the capability in their own mindset to kill a large amount of people, or even one person at that, you know, should not have a gun. I think this is something that people on all aisles can agree on, except for the media. Of course, the media can't because, you know, for being so not biased that they all seem to have a lot of inherent biases around this story. And it's the same way every time something like this happens. Every time that any sort of shooting happens, CNN and liberal outlets are going to blame the weapon. Fox News and other conservative outlets are going to blame, you know, the shooter or some other miscellaneous problem, you know, part of the problem. And what that does is it divides people. And that's what the media is really best at. The mass media no longer holds journalism to the massive integrity that they held it to, you know, 30, 40 years ago, even 100 years ago, right? Journalists used to be something to be, you know, looked up at. They were kind of heroes in society. They exposed things that needed exposed in society. Now journalism is claiming that mass shootings can be prevented if gamers don't wear headsets at tournaments. Okay? Journalism now is, did Katy Perry's tit really fall out at her concert last night? That's journalism. And what that does is that dumbs down the populace. And we have people now who, instead of actually wanting to tackle issues, are just more focused on what CNN or Fox or NBC is going to tell them about what happened, you know? The media has dumbed down our society to the point that people don't think for themselves anymore. They think behind an identity politic. And that creates divide. And that's the number one thing that, especially in a situation like this, we don't need. Because the fact of the matter is that this event never should have happened. There should never have been even a worry that this shooting was going to occur. No, and another question, actually. Where was the security for this event? I just went to the Call of Duty World League Championship, like, literally, you know, not that long ago. It's been like a week and a half. There was no problem. There would never have been a problem because there was security out the wazoo all throughout that stadium. Okay? They had full-body metal detectors at all the entrances. They had handheld metal detectors to go through people's bags with. Okay? And if you were suspected of having anything, they held you off to the side. They checked everything. They would pat you down if necessary. And if you had something on you, you were pretty much fucked. Because there was like 30 security guards at all the entrances manning all the metal detectors. There was the security was just so airtight at that event. I felt safe, and I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad that, you know, all of those security measures were in place, but where was that during this event? I mean, we got to the point where he literally had a laser sight on this pistol, and you're telling me that none of the security could figure the whole thing out? There was no metal detector to see if he had a gun? No security could stop the shooting? Nobody could engage the shooter before he killed himself, you know? You know, as someone who plays video games quite often, I get sick and tired of the narrative being pushed that gamers are just a bunch of mentally ill psychopaths. The truth is that video games are blamed for problems that are not caused by video games because it's an easy target. And it's because people especially in the higher, like in the higher ups, in the high parts of the media, in government, in Congress, they don't want to fix the real issue. Because that takes work, right? You know, who wants to work, right? Who wants to do our job and actually fix a problem in society that's, you know, kind of plaguing us, you know? I can just blame video games and the NRA will give me $300 million in corporate sponsor, and, you know, that's much easier to just collect that huge check from somebody who has, you know, special interests than it is to actually go out and fix the problem. And I'm not going to sit here and preach a solution, because there's probably multiple solutions that we could take, but the fact of the matter is that this game is a non-violent game. It's Madden, right? Okay, there's no guns. It's a football game. And if you think that this game's violent, maybe the real sport should be outlawed, because it's a hell of a lot more violent than this video game is. The security just did not do their job if any were present. This man should never have had a firearm whatsoever. Headsets are not the cause of their death. Okay, there's no basis for that at all. The media needs to get its head out of its own ass and start actually being journalists and stop blaming the problems on the games. Stop reporting the names and faces and live stories of the shooters. Stop shoving your microphones into the faces of victims 3 minutes after the fucking tragedy happened. Stop blaming people who use video games as an outlet from the shit in their lives for mass shootings and for violence in society, okay? There it is, so that's what I wanted to say. Anyways, if you guys did agree or you did like the video, whatever, make sure to drop a like on it, subscribe if you're brand new around here, follow me on Twitter at @SubToOptimus for memes, thoughts, and updates. Consider becoming a channel member for $5 a month to help support content that will become demonetized, copyrighted, etc. Join the Discord down below. We just hit 1,000 members a couple weeks ago. It's still steadily growing, guys, but until my next video, this is Optimus, playing video games and not killing a bunch of people in a crowd, and signing out.